Deep within the arid savannas and dense, unforgiving acacia brushlands of eastern and southern Africa, our field expedition tracks an elusive, near-mythical biological subject known across these isolated territories as the ghost of the thicket. Tragelaphus strepsiceros, the Greater Kudu, a massive, sexually dimorphic apex herbivore weighing up to 600 pounds, that showcases one of the most spectacular evolutionary and mechanical engineering marvels in the entire animal kingdom. Our rigorous scientific data gathering focuses primarily on its ultimate physiological distinction, the gargantuan spiral horns, possessed exclusively by the males, which can reach astonishing lengths of up to 60 inches when meticulously measured along the outer curvature, forming a permanent, unsheddable structural apparatus of dense, compressed keratin fibers sheathing a highly vascularized, living inner bone core that requires more than 6 to 8 years of continuous metabolic investment to fully mature into a magnificent 2.5 to 3-tiered spiral formation. The subject and setting captures a solitary, dominant, mature male, Greater Kudu, standing completely motionless and hyper-vigilant within the dense, interlocking thorn brick geometry of the South African Karoo scrubland precisely at the onset of dawn. The appearance reveals an imposing, tall torso standing nearly 5 feet at the shoulder, accented by 11 to 12 razor-thin, distinct, vertical white camouflage stripes crossing the narrow flanks to break up its silhouette, a majestic crown of triple-twisted spiral horns rising vertically from the frontal bone of the skull. Highly mobile, oversized ears lined with pinkish-white hair designed to capture subsonic frequencies and aid in thermoregulation. A prominent, bushy throat beard running down the brisket, and an intense, calculating gaze of absolute survival awareness. The action depicts this massive bull turning its head with an ultra-slow, deliberate, mechanical rotation to scan the surrounding perimeter for apex predators like lions and leopards. Its large ears twitching independently to triangulate audio signals with absolute physical stability, while the body remains as still as a stone monument. The textures and materials emphasize the coarse, utterly matte, non-reflective quality of its weather-beaten coat, which transitions from a warm brown to a striking bluish-gray in older individuals. The deeply rugged, intensely ridged, and weather-checked surface of the horn spirals, which feature a prominent raised ridge or keel that runs the entire length of the spiral to provide immense structural reinforcement against bending and shearing forces. Caked with dark river mud and dry savanna earth, and the sharp, calcified texture of the surrounding acacia spikes, intentionally eliminating any gloss, glare, or artificial sheen from the environment. Biomechanical analysis of these magnificent spirals reveals they do not hinder movement in dense cover, but rather function as a specialized wedge, When the kudu flees, it tilts its muzzle upward, laying the horns flat against its back to fluidly displace dense branches without sustaining optical or dermal injury, while simultaneously serving as a complex interlocking mechanism during the autumn rutting season, where rival males bind their spiraled keels together to safely distribute torque, engage in a strenuous pushing match, and test pure cervical muscle strength, specifically involving the hyperdeveloped splenius and complexus neck muscles, without inflicting immediate, fatal puncture wounds to the cranium, making this horn structure a perfect balance of lethal potential and ritualistic non-lethality. Navigating the primeval landscapes of the Alaskan interior, we encounter a geological-scale organism that represents the absolute zenith of the Cervidae lineage, Alces gigas, the Alaskan moose, an evolutionary extreme that thrives where the northern taiga meets the frost-locked glacial marshes of the Denali wilderness. Standing over 7 feet at its massive, muscled shoulder hump and weighing nearly 1,600 pounds, this towering sentinel is an architectural masterpiece of cold weather survival, specifically engineered to withstand the subarctic's brutal metabolic demands. The crowning achievement of this species is its immense palmate antler system, a specialized bone structure that can exceed a 6-foot horizontal span and weigh nearly 90 pounds of dense, mineralized tissue, representing the fastest-growing organ in the animal kingdom. These antlers are not merely ornaments for display, but sophisticated acoustic sensors. The broad, dish-like palms are biologically designed to function as parabolic reflectors, catching subsonic vibrations across the silent tundra and funneling sound directly into the bull's oversized ears to detect rivals or potential mates across vast distances. Every autumn, the bull undergoes a staggering physiological feat, diverting immense reservoirs of calcium and phosphate from its skeletal frame to regenerate these massive plates, which eventually harden into a raw, porous, and utterly matte bone surface that bears the scars of previous territorial disputes. The visual sequence depicts a dominant bull navigating the yellowing willow thickets during the peak of the rut. His chocolate-brown, shaggy coat matted with frost and river mud, providing a non-reflective, waterproof shield against the freezing elements. As the bull wades knee-deep through a glacial mire, he lowers his heavy muzzle into the icy water before elevating his head in a slow, rhythmic rotation, his nostrils flaring to expel concentrated plumes of steam into the subarctic air while maintaining absolute physical stability despite the massive leverage of the bone crown atop his skull. When two titans finally meet, the confrontation is a violent masterclass in biomechanical torque. They do not simply clash, but interlock their palmate plates to engage in a strenuous pushing match, straining hyperdeveloped neck muscles to their structural limits to test bone density and pure physical endurance. This ritualized violence, characterized by the clashing of jagged tines and the spray of frozen earth, ensures that only the most resilient genes survive the winter, cementing the Alaskan Moose's status as the undisputed, iron-willed sovereign of the northern frost. Shifting our focus to the unforgiving, sun-scorched expanses of the Namib Desert, we document a marvel of arid land survival and biomechanical defense, Oryx gazella, the Gemsbok. Thriving in an environment where moisture is a rarity and temperatures routinely reach lethal extremes, this heavily built desert antelope is immediately identifiable by its striking, high-contrast black and white facial mask and robust, muscular frame. However, the absolute focal point of our biological observation is its magnificent cranial weaponry. A pair of perfectly straight, rapier-like horns that pierce the desert sky, reaching astonishing lengths of up to 48 inches. Unlike many ungulate species where such ornamentation is exclusive to males, these lethal, heavily ridged spears are proudly possessed by both sexes, serving not merely as displays of genetic fitness, but as highly effective, armor-piercing defensive armaments fully capable of impaling and neutralizing apex predators such as lions and leopards. Our visual documentation captures a solitary, dominant individual traversing the razor-thin crest of a towering, iron-rich red sand dune under the relentless midday sun, its pale, fawn-colored coat and distinct black flank bands, providing a stark, cinematic contrast against the vibrant, shifting sands. The action sequence details the Gemsbok pausing its steady, energy-conserving march to meticulously scan the vast, heat-shimmering horizon, its long, perfectly parallel horns acting as an unmistakable visual deterrent to any approaching threat. We closely observe the fine micro-textures of its resilient, dust-coated hide and the raw, utterly matte finish of its keratin-sheathed horns, which feature deep, pronounced ridges along the lower half to reinforce structural integrity before tapering seamlessly into razor-sharp, smooth points. Biomechanically, this creature is a masterpiece of thermodynamic engineering, utilizing a highly specialized network of blood vessels within its nasal passages to cool oxygenated blood before it reaches the brain, allowing the animal to endure blistering heat without suffering neurological collapse. As the harsh desert sun begins to set, casting long, dramatic shadows across the rippling dunes, the oryx lowers its heavily armed head in a ritualistic display of territorial readiness, kicking up clouds of fine red dust. This striking silhouette, defined entirely by the sheer length and lethal geometric precision of its twin spears against the twilight, solidifies the Gemsbok as the undisputed rapier-wielding sentinel of the African sands, perfectly concluding our deep dive into the world's most formidable horned species.